It's been a long time since I've done any real throwing with porcelain, but I had the urge this week, and a bag of perhaps too soft clay to work with. The last few times I've done some work with porcelain, I've ended up with a couple of pots I like, but there's also just been a tremendous amount that's gone wrong, and it's mostly been my fault, I think. For instance, I was leaving throwing rings on the interior that were too prominent, which you could then end up seeing from the outside, creating this unwanted sort of wavering effect in the wall. Not to mention that the glaze on this piece crawled, and the bottom portion of the wall slumped. Not only that, but the shape of the pot too is rather hideous. And I think in the year or two since I threw this piece, my sense of proportion, shape, size and scale has all improved dramatically. So I want to make a new batch of these small porcelain vases, but this time I'll be throwing them a lot more carefully, trimming them more carefully too, I hope, all in order to minimise the vessel disforming and firing in a way I don't like. It's always such a strange sensation, switching to porcelain after working with stoneware for such a long time. The sensation I always get is that the piece of clay takes a lot longer to work into one uniform lump. And for the longest time when wedging it, centering it and coning it, it feels as if there are these strange twists or cavities within it. So this time I'm really going to wedge this lump thoroughly, as will I the smaller lumps, and I'll cone it rather a lot too. All in all, it makes using the stoneware that I normally work with feel like a walk in the park. And I think honestly what I should do at some point, when I find one simple thin glaze that I like on porcelain, is to spend a month solid working with the stuff, as this isn't something I've really done since college. Instead I simply spend a day or two here or there throwing with it, and with all the failures I've had using it, I never feel particularly optimistic about what I make. Instead I sort of just feel like somewhere down the line it's just going to be another failure. And it's this mindset that's made me a bit trepidatious, and not all that particularly keen to throw with it again. I've even got 5 or 6 bags of different types of porcelain, which I bought with the aim of testing and pitting them together, but alas, that's another project that never happened. After each lump has been weighed out, I give each one another wedge, mainly just to incorporate all the separate weighed out pieces. And like any of you who've worked with porcelain will know, when I got this bag out, when feeling it from the outside, the porcelain inside did feel relatively hard, but once wedged up and moved around a bit, it loosens up and becomes very soft. I can't tell you how great it feels to finally have all the boxes picked up from my last shop restock. The place was starting to become very full, and with everything mostly stored away now, I can move around a bit more freely again. I've weighed out about 400 grams for each of these, and this is a particularly grey porcelain, but as it turns bone dry it becomes much brighter, and that intensifies even further once fired. But despite its grey colour here, it acts and feels like most porcelain does, although there is a tiny amount of grog in the body, not enough to make throwing it any easier, but when it's trimmed it can be a bit of a nuisance, as lots of long gouges are left in the surface, which means I spend a lot of time when turning getting rid of these. Once fully centred, the piece of clay is opened up, and typically I use my index finger and thumb for this process, with the sharpness of my index finger leading and my thumb following just behind to widen it. Thereafter I draw them out together to form the base, and I press in with my index finger to create more of a right angle at the very bottom. This way I'm not losing excess material inside by misplacing it. I then pinch the clay up from the bottom and lift. Although this first pull isn't really like the others, instead I'm just trying to collar in and thin the thicker walls I started off with. And hereafter I can begin to be a bit more aggressive, pressing in and creating a much more exaggerated bulge, my fingers on the inside pressing out where the bump is, and with my knuckle on the outside lifting that up. With a rough cylinder formed, I can now begin shaping it properly. I always start by creating the central point. I try to make sure this accounts for at least half of the height of the overall piece. Thereafter this top half can be divided into however many planes or surfaces I want. But initially I'll be recreating that first bad pot I showed you at the start, only this time with better proportions I think. As I turn away clay from the outside, I keep one hand inside the vessel to stabilise it and to stop it from potentially swaying from side to side, which it is very subtly doing here. And with the rough shape now approximately there, I can begin scraping off the rest of the slip and further defining the shape. You'll find people will often describe porcelain feeling like plastic, or like plasticine, and I think I feel this most in the way the material cleaves off from itself, as it doesn't always come off cleanly. and sometimes when I trim it, or even turn it away at this stage, the material sort of rips, leaving a slightly rhythmically cratered surface, like reverse chattering almost, if that makes sense. I have also, again, used porcelain that is very soft, and you'll find that if you are using particularly smooth bodies, when it comes to lifting them off, your hands will often stick to the material, even if you've scraped off the slip that covers it. And whilst it can still be relatively easy to pick up a pot that's quite soft, when it comes to placing it back down on the wearboard by your side, often the clay can have a difficult time releasing from your hands, and as you carefully force it and pry it away, that can end up distorting the pot itself. One of the best things about porcelain is just how easy it is to centre. It's so soft and fine, and after a few cones up and down to get rid of any inconsistencies you can feel within the lump of clay, it's usually good to go. One of the harder transitions to make though when transitioning from stoneware to porcelain is simply using less water and relying on more slip, as porcelain bodies tend to degrade a lot faster if oversaturated with water compared to the stoneware body I normally use, which takes far longer before it begins to feel overworked and too wet. In many ways, I think this is the most difficult thing for a beginner to get used to, and in fact it's still difficult to get used to now, as typically the amount of water I fetch or where I gather slip from isn't something I think about that much, and to some degree, like wheel speed I suppose, it becomes second nature, so I am having to constantly think about what I'm doing when throwing this stuff. The other thing that happens with porcelain is that it shrinks much more from this moment when freshly thrown to finally fired. It can be between 16 to 20%, which, compared to the 12% of the stoneware bodies I typically use, is massive, and therefore when making more functional pottery, such as mugs, bowls or teapots, you obviously have to account for this, otherwise you can end up with pieces that are far too little. This in itself is another huge adjustment you have to make in your throwing, as obviously you're having to scale up everything you make, which includes using more clay than you might when throwing with stoneware. I think it's for this reason that when I do use porcelain, I tend to stick to making one-off, individual pieces. It's lazy, perhaps, but I'm very comfortable with my functional range being predominantly stoneware. You also do, of course, have another option, and that's to throw stoneware pots and then apply a porcelain slip onto the exterior after the stoneware pots have been trimmed and are still quite leather hard. On the whole, glazes on porcelain tend to be much more vibrant, as obviously the canvas the glaze is going on is white, as compared to the ES80 stoneware I normally use, that creates a canvas that's sort of a grey-brown. This dulls and muddies the colour of the glaze that's coated over it. Thus, if you are looking for a certain intensity in the colours you use, using a porcelain body may be advantageous. Although for me, one of the issues of using porcelain slip on the outside of my pots is that typically you need to apply a generous enough layer for the vibrancy of the porcelain to really come through. Yet if that's being applied to a pot that's been trimmed very finely, then you can run into some issues, as the wet slip softens the clay beneath it, potentially causing the pot to collapse. This used to happen to a lot of our pots during my apprenticeship at Maze Hill Pottery with Lisa Hammond. All of the work I produced was raw glazed, meaning the pots were dipped in slip when leather hard, and often if you did this when the pots were still a touch on the soft side, the rims of the vessels could split, or the handles themselves could just fall right off. I think learning to make pottery like this was really useful, as it means you become very sensitive to the different stages of leather hard, when they're too soft, just right, or when they're too hard. It's an acquired skill, and it's something I'm often asked about when I discuss things like the perfect stage of leather hard for trimming. For me it's obvious, I can just feel the pot and lightly press it to gain this information. But if you're just starting out and there's nobody to really guide you and tell you what's what, then there can be rather a lot of trial and error until you figure it out. Perhaps I should make a video about that soon. Anyway, back to the porcelain at hand. For this batch, I'm going to be a lot more careful about leaving much softer throwing rings on the inside. The slower you lift the walls up, the closer together the throwing rings will be. Therefore, if you lift really slowly, you should be left with a very smooth, even surface on the inside. But obviously I'm identifying that in my narration as I'm watching this back. That's one way of dealing with throwing rings on the inside. The other way is to do what I'm about to do. As this clay is so sticky, I'm going to blast it from the outside with a heat gun, while simultaneously running a throwing stick up and down the interior walls, softening the throwing rings. I even use one of those very dense sponges which I soak and run up and down the walls, all in order to create a surface that's much smoother, and won't show in the finished product nearly as much as intense throwing rings might. Sometimes when centering you may feel something within the lump, For instance, at this moment, I can feel as if there's an inconsistency within. But by continually coning the clay up and down, churning the material around and essentially wedging it on the wheel, you'll feel these inconsistencies disappear. The next time I work with porcelain, I am definitely taking the clay out of the bag the night before and leaving it out overnight. Then, the following morning, I'll wedge it all back up and hopefully it'll be much harder. I do sometimes think I should switch my entire practice over to porcelain. As a body, it's much stronger when thrown and trimmed very finely, again, compared to the stoneware I normally use. If you watch my work, you'll know that fineness and delicacy and lightness are all aspects that I strive for, yet fundamentally I'm using material, stoneware, that's not really built for that. Yet doing this shifts so many things, like firing temperature, the glazes I use, the way it's glazed. As porcelain is a much finer body, it can be very porous at the bisque-fired stage, meaning it draws in more water and therefore a thicker layer of glaze adheres to the outside. This explains some of the recent bowls I've made using this stuff, where the glaze that coats them feels like it's tremendously thick. There's also the fact that the pot itself shrinks more, meaning that ultimately there's less space for all that glaze to fit. Therefore it clumps up and can really gather and pool on the surface of the pot. And so, if and when I begin using porcelain more regularly, I either want to leave it completely unglazed, which means I'd burnish it a lot at the leather hard stage, then sand the pots once biscuit fired, and then do even more sanding after the pot has been through the gas kiln. The only problem with that is you create surfaces that are very prone to staining, so typically I think it would be for one-off pots only. The other solution is just to have a couple of glazes that you apply very thinly. A wash more than anything, something to just fill and unify the surface. The other incredible thing about porcelain is its translucency. If you've never experienced this, it's worth trying. Try and find a porcelain dinner plate, hold it up to a bright light, and move your fingers back and forth. I love this effect, despite this being a horrible pot. So again, this translucency just plays into those qualities I really like. On a few of these, at the leather hard stage I'll probably end up softening some of the throwing rings inside, as at this point when the clay is still relatively soft, you can only press out so hard without distorting the shape of the pot. Okay, one more to go. By the way, for those of you wondering what the shapes are I'm making, they aren't intended as cups. Instead, I make these in groups which I end up displaying together in rows like this. So in many ways they are more sculptural pieces. I'm not making them from a functional point of view, but I do still, of course, want them to be very well thrown and trimmed. I'm just not considering things like drinking from them. Here's a much older porcelain set, the vase of which I showed you at the start was a reject from this group, due to all those flaws I showed you. And that brings me on to the final potential issue with porcelain and trimming it so thinly, and that's just how much it can warp and move during the reduction firing. As for me, I only really want to work with porcelain if I can exploit the characteristics, such as how thinly it can be worked and its translucency. This means there's no point making thick porcelain pots, and therefore I'm making objects which just are more susceptible to moving and distorting when fired to a much hotter temperature. The way I'm learning to get around this has less to do with the pots themselves, but rather where they're positioned in the kiln. In the past, I've placed pots like this on the edge of the shelf, next to the burner, and inevitably the side of the pot that the flame is hitting the most creates an inconsistency in how evenly it's fired, thus warping the pot and potentially giving it an oval opening. So instead of firing them on the edge of the shelf, I instead place them well within the pack, surrounded by other pots. This way, hopefully the flames can reach them more evenly, instead of the brunt of the flame hitting one side of the pot. Instead, there are lots of other, more robust pots that surround those more delicate ones, filtering and softening the flames, and hopefully lessening the distorting that can occur. This isn't something I've tested a lot. In fact, I've probably only done this in about 2 or 3 cases, but it does seem to have made quite a significant difference. I would, by the way, love to hear what your favourite porcelains are, both in terms of the finished colour of the body and its throwability. The problem with many of the porcelains I've tested is that when fired in a reduction atmosphere they can turn really quite blue, when really what I'm after is just a plain, simple white. And perhaps again this is a problem with an easy solution, and that's simply to fire these in my electric kiln in an oxidised atmosphere. Either way, as throwing sessions go, this one wasn't too bad. I certainly felt a bit rusty and cautious, but I got the hang of it. I only wish the clay was a lot harder. And there we go, I think that should be enough for a nice group, provided the trimming goes well, which, maybe, I'm foreshadowing something disastrous. But you'll have to wait a while for that, if I dare post it. I'm going to take next weekend off, as I haven't had a holiday in ages. It's also my birthday weekend, so I'm trying not to do too much, and I've just spent 3 weeks doing so much packing to get all my orders out that I need a bit of a break. So forgive my week of absence, but I have also been feeling very burnt out the last couple of weeks, so I think some time hiking in the mountains might do me some good. Anyway, thank you so much for watching all the way through to the end. That alone always means so much, and I'll see you next time.